They don't fall in love like everyone else. They don't say the right words at the right time, and they don't hold you close just because it feels good. They hold back, they disappear, they make you doubt if they ever cared at all. But what if I told you that the moment they seem farthest away might actually be the moment they love you most? This isn't a story about rejection, it's about transformation. If you see this shift in an avoidant attachment, don't walk away, because what's happening underneath the silence is more powerful than words can express. The silent pullback isn't rejection, it's emotional recalibration. What looks like disinterest or detachment is often the avoidance way of creating space to process emotions that feel too heavy to carry in real time. When they start caring deeply, their system goes into overdrive. The intensity of affection, the unpredictability of emotional closeness, the sudden realization that someone truly sees them. It all feels both beautiful and terrifying. So they retreat, not to erase you, but to find balance within themselves. This distance is their mind's attempt to restore control in a space that suddenly feels unsafe, not because of you, but because love itself reminds them of old wounds. The avoidant pullback is like a system reboot. Their nervous system is overwhelmed by connection, and the only way they know to cope is by withdrawing. To them, closeness feels like losing freedom, emotional exposure feels like danger. Yet behind the walls they put up, something deeper is happening. They're thinking about you more than they show. They replay moments in their head, analyzing what they felt, what scared them, and why they reacted the way they did. Their silence is not the absence of care. It's the noise of inner conflict. In this space, they're recalibrating how much of themselves they can risk sharing. It's like standing at the edge of a cliff, wanting to jump but terrified of falling. The avoidant doesn't pull away to punish you, they pull away to protect themselves from the vulnerability that loving you triggers. Their instincts tell them to disappear before they get hurt. But this time, something is different. They come back. They don't stay gone forever, because despite the discomfort, the bond feels magnetic. That's the shift you must notice. It's easy to mistake their silence for rejection, but patience reveals the truth. If you stay grounded instead of reacting, they feel it. Your steadiness becomes the safety they never had. Slowly, the retreat becomes shorter, the distance less severe. The recalibration is working. They're learning that connection doesn't have to cost them their autonomy, that they can feel deeply and still remain whole. So when they pull back, don't chase, just hold steady. Because behind that silence, their heart is realigning, not running. The avoidance growing discomfort is actually a sign of deep emotional connection. When someone with avoidant tendencies begins to feel uneasy, restless, or uncertain around you, it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because you've reached a depth within them that few people ever touch. Emotional intimacy awakens something they've spent years keeping dormant. They start to care more than they're comfortable admitting, and that caring disrupts their sense of control. What used to feel safe, emotional distance, independence, self-protection, suddenly feels threatened by the pull of connection. The more they feel drawn to you, the louder their internal alarms become. Their discomfort is the heart's first language of awakening. You'll notice it not in grand gestures, but in micro behaviors. They seem distracted after a deep conversation. Their texts slow down after a moment of closeness. They become quieter when things start to feel too emotionally charged. It's not indifference, it's fear disguised as withdrawal. They're feeling something that challenges their emotional blueprint. In the past, closeness meant pain, loss, or rejection, so their body reacts as if history is repeating itself. But in reality, something entirely new is happening. They're falling for you. The paradox of the avoidant is that love doesn't make them relax, it makes them tense, because love demands vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like exposure. Yet, the discomfort that rises is not a wall, it's a doorway. It means their heart is trying to stretch beyond its limitations. They're learning to let affection coexist with safety. This stage is fragile, because if you misread their discomfort as rejection and pull away too, the cycle of fear continues. But if you stay composed and calm, you show them something revolutionary, that closeness doesn't have to be chaos. Their anxiety is not about you, it's about the unfamiliar peace your presence brings. You're rewriting their emotional experience. What feels uncomfortable now is the process of old patterns dissolving, their nervous system adjusting to love that doesn't wound. So when they seem uneasy or distant, recognize it for what it is: proof that you've reached them. You've touched the part of them that wants to love, but never felt safe enough to try. Their discomfort isn't the end of connection. It's the beginning of real intimacy. When vulnerability surfaces, their defense mechanisms intensify before they soften. For someone with an avoidant attachment style, emotional openness doesn't come naturally. It feels like standing under a spotlight with no armor. The moment they start to feel emotionally exposed, their instincts push them to retreat, to build walls higher, to reclaim a sense of control they believe they're losing. You'll notice it when things start to feel deeper, when conversations get honest, when affection becomes consistent, when you reach a point where emotional intimacy is no longer theoretical but real. That's when they begin to resist. They might become distant, sarcastic, critical, or suddenly too busy. It's not about losing interest, it's about survival. Vulnerability activates old fears, the fear of being dependent, of being hurt, of not being enough. When those defense mechanisms rise, it's easy to think you've done something wrong. But what's really happening is internal chaos. Their heart wants to open, but their mind warns them not to. For the avoidant, vulnerability has always been dangerous territory. They learned early that closeness often ends in pain, so they trained themselves to keep love at a distance. But as their feelings for you deepen, those protective habits begin to clash with the connection they crave. Their sudden detachment or emotional shutdown is their way of trying to regulate the intensity of what they feel. It's like slamming the brakes when the car starts moving too fast, even though the road is safe. What they don't realize at first is that these defenses no longer protect them, they isolate them. And deep down, they know it. That's why after every retreat, there's a moment of quiet reflection, a flicker of guilt, a thought that maybe this time they overreacted. It's the beginning of self-awareness, the moment the walls start to crack. This cycle, pulling back, then slowly returning, is how the avoidant learns to balance fear and love. Each time they come back, they're a little more open, a little less guarded. So when their defenses rise, don't take it personally. It's the storm before the calm, the final resistance before surrender. Their heart is learning a new language, one where love doesn't equal danger and vulnerability doesn't mean loss. Stay patient, because once their defenses soften, what emerges is something real. The quiet, genuine affection they've been too afraid to show until now. Small gestures of openness are the avoidance love language in disguise. While others express affection through words or grand displays, the avoidant shows love in ways that seem almost invisible, unless you know how to see them. When they start to care, they won't necessarily confess it. They'll reveal it through actions wrapped in subtlety. It might be the way they remember something you mentioned weeks ago, how they ask if you got home safely, or how they begin to include you in parts of their routine. To them, these gestures are monumental because each one requires lowering a guard they've kept up for years. What seems small to you is a quiet declaration to them. You matter, and I'm letting you in. They express emotion not through intensity, but through intention. You might notice them offering help when you don't ask, opening up about their past in fragments, or sharing music, movies, or ideas that mean something to them. These are not casual exchanges. They're acts of emotional courage. Every small gesture is a risk. Each word they share, each moment of attention, is a step outside their comfort zone. And though they may not verbalize their feelings, their behavior begins to shift in ways that only someone truly paying attention will understand. Their love language hides behind subtle actions because words feel too exposed. Saying, "I love you," or "I need you," threatens their sense of independence. But showing up in small, consistent ways feels safer. It's how they test the waters of connection without drowning in vulnerability. These gestures often come right after a period of distance. They might not apologize directly, but they'll reach out to check on you or bring up something meaningful to re-establish closeness. That's their way of saying, I care, without having to confront the weight of those words. Recognizing these moments is essential. If you dismiss them because they seem minor, the avoidant feels unseen, misunderstood, and may retreat again. But when you acknowledge their effort, even silently, it reinforces the belief that love can exist without judgment or pressure. Their openness grows when it feels safe to do so. Over time, those small gestures accumulate, creating a quiet rhythm of affection that speaks louder than words ever could. The avoidance love may whisper instead of shout, but make no mistake, when they start to show up in these subtle, deliberate ways, it's because their heart is finally beginning to trust yours. Consistency without pressure builds safety for them to approach love again. For an avoidant, love has never been a place of calm. It's been a battlefield of expectations, demands, and emotional chaos. They learned early that affection often came with conditions, that connection meant losing autonomy, and that being seen too closely could lead to pain. So when someone shows up with stability, not to fix them, not to chase them, but simply to stay, it begins to rewrite everything they believe about love. Consistency becomes medicine for a nervous system that expects rejection. Each steady interaction tells them, you're safe here. Each gentle moment teaches them that closeness doesn't have to suffocate. But consistency alone isn't enough. It must come without pressure. Avoidants are hyper, aware of emotional demands. They can feel it the moment someone expects them to perform affection or prove commitment. The more pressure they feel, the more they retreat. What they crave, but rarely admit, is a connection that lets them breathe. When you're consistent without forcing closeness, you give them space to approach on their own terms. That space isn't distance, it's trust building. It tells them that they can choose love freely, not out of obligation. Over time, this steady energy disarms their defenses. They begin to test it, disappearing for a bit, pulling away, waiting to see if you'll react with anger or desperation. When you don't, something shifts inside them. They realize that love doesn't always come with punishment or control. That realization becomes the foundation of emotional safety. They start returning faster after each retreat, speaking softer, opening up a little more each time. Consistency teaches them predictability, and predictability heals fear. What they need isn't constant reassurance, it's quiet reliability. The kind that says, I'm not here to invade your space. I'm here to walk beside you. Avoidants fall in love not through intensity, but through the slow, steady rhythm of safety. When they begin to feel that your presence is unwavering yet non-demanding, something incredible happens. Their walls stop feeling necessary. They begin to associate love with peace, not panic. And in that calm, they find the courage to lean closer, to trust deeper, and to love more freely than they ever have before. The shift from avoidance to subtle engagement is proof of trust taking root. When someone with avoidant tendencies begins to engage, even in the smallest, most understated ways, it's not random and it's not temporary. It's the visible sign of an internal transformation. For the first time, they're starting to believe that connection doesn't automatically equal danger. They're learning, slowly, that intimacy can coexist with safety. This shift isn't loud or dramatic, it's quiet, almost fragile. But to them, it means everything, because engagement requires trust, and trust is something they've never given easily. You'll see this shift in their behavior before you hear it in their words. The avoidant who once needed space now starts showing up on their own. They initiate conversations instead of avoiding them. They linger a little longer during moments of closeness where before they might have pulled away. They may ask questions about your day, your thoughts, your feelings, not because they're suddenly comfortable with emotion, but because they're beginning to care in a way that outweighs their fear. Their engagement might still carry hesitation, but it's real and it's growing. Trust for them is not declared, it's demonstrated. Every text they send, every moment they stay instead of running, every small vulnerability they share is a leap of faith. It's a quiet surrender to something their heart wants, but their mind still questions. They're testing the waters of love, trying to see if it's safe to swim this time. And when they start to trust that you won't drown them in expectations or abandonment, they begin to move closer, not out of obligation, but desire. This subtle engagement is the start of emotional intimacy for the avoidant. They may not fully understand what's happening inside them, but they feel the pull. It's not just about attraction, it's about comfort. You've become a place where they can exist without pretending to be invincible. Their effort to connect, however minimal it seems, is a quiet rebellion against the part of them that's always run away. The shift means they're beginning to rewrite their story, one where love isn't something to survive, but something to belong to. And when that happens, you're not just witnessing progress, you're witnessing healing in motion.